My brother, Mason, slept with my wife. The sheer betrayal cut me to the core, but the subsequent actions of my parents were even more devastating. Their unwavering support for him, their demand that I somehow accept their new family, left me reeling. I'm 34, and I'm barely holding it together. I need to tell this story, to unpack it, maybe even to make some sense of it all. We grew up in a seemingly ordinary suburban house outside Boston. My childhood memories aren't horrific. Not initially. My parents held down decent jobs, we had family vacations, summer barbecues, the usual. For 8 blissful years, I was their only child, and life felt normal, even happy. Then Mason arrived, and everything changed. It wasn't just sibling rivalry. It was a seismic shift in my family dynamic. The day he came home, I became invisible. It wasn't a gradual fading, but a sudden, jarring erasure. My parents' attention, their affection, shifted entirely to him. I remember the science fair in 6th grade. Months of painstaking work culminated in a detailed solar system model, complete with a programmed Arduino system to animate the planets. The judges were thrilled, awarding me a special prize for the mathematical precision. My parents, they missed it. Mason had t-ball practice, not even a game, just practice. His participation ribbons adorned our living room walls, while my science fair trophy sat unopened on the mantel for a week before being relegated to the basement. My mother still has Mason's kindergarten macaroni art framed in the kitchen, yet she can't recall where my high school diploma is. My father was even worse. He promised to attend my crucial robotics competition, where I captained the team after months of dedicated work. But Mason wanted to throw a ball around in the backyard, so my father chose to stay home. The stark contrast became painfully evident when Mason turned 16, and they bought him a brand new Honda Civic, a gift supposedly to boost his confidence. At 16, I juggled 3 part-time jobs to save for college, their idea of teaching me responsibility. Mason totaled that Civic within 3 months. They bought him another. He was a nightmare child, a whirlwind of tantrums, broken possessions, and skipped school. They excused his behavior. He was sensitive, expressing himself, going through a phase. Meanwhile, I was expected to be perfect. Anything less than an A+ brought subtle digs about spreading myself too thin. Any display of frustration or anger meant I was being difficult, upsetting Mason. For years, I truly believed there was something wrong with me. I desperately sought their attention, convinced that if I were a better son, they would notice. College opened my eyes. I saw how other families interacted, the casual phone calls from parents checking in, the celebrations of each child's achievements. It was a stark contrast to my own experience. The freedom, the normalcy, the genuine affection I witnessed in my friends' families were things I'd only ever dreamed of. College was a breath of fresh air, a revelation of what a healthy family dynamic actually looked like. But it also brought into sharp focus the years of emotional neglect I'd endured, the unfairness of it all. And now the distance was a wall, a silent chasm between me and my family home. Holidays were brief escapes, punctuated by my invented reasons to leave early. Dad's guilt trips about Mason missing his big brother felt hollow. Mason's calls and texts were transactional, always about money for some ill-conceived scheme. By junior year, I was thriving, my academic success culminating in 3 published papers. The department head's recommendation for an exchange program in South Korea felt like a lifeline. 6 months at Seoul National University, immersed in a cutting-edge AI project, became my escape. My departure went unnoticed amidst the latest Mason-generated crisis. Seoul transformed me. It was a whirlwind of opportunity, a constant buzz of innovation. Most importantly, I was finally free from the shadow of Mason's brother, or the quiet one. I was just me. When the program ended, a startup offered me a full-time position, a ridiculously good salary, visa sponsorship, the whole shebang. I accepted without hesitation. Graduation arrived, another milestone, marked by my parents' absence. Mason's GameStop interview took precedence, unsurprisingly. I felt a strange sense of detachment, a quiet relief. Moving to Seoul was the best decision of my life. Within 3 years, I was leading projects, building my own life on my own terms. My parents remained largely oblivious, their calls invariably focused on Mason's latest catastrophe, a firing, a debt crisis, a pregnant girlfriend, a lie, as it turned out, leading to a restraining order. Then I met Rachel. I still vividly remember that day. Struggling with a malfunctioning credit card in a tiny Hongdae coffee shop, I was floundering in my broken Korean, utterly embarrassed. Rachel stepped in, translating, rescuing me from complete humiliation. She was an English teacher at a nearby international school. Rachel was unlike anyone I'd ever known. She truly listened, engaged with my work, understood my passion. When I excitedly explained new code, she shared my enthusiasm, never zoning out. She had her own life, her own dreams. She wasn't seeking someone to fix. She was looking for a partner. 2 years later, I proposed. Our wedding was small, intimate, perfect, just our close friends and her family. My parents' absence, explained by another Mason-related emergency, credit card fraud this time, felt liberating. Life was good, incredibly good. My career soared, my marriage flourished, Seoul was my city. Weekends were filled with adventures with Rachel, exploring Asia, tasting exotic foods, learning together. I felt I had truly escaped the family drama. Then, the unexpected. My company announced a new office in Boston, and they wanted me to lead it. The move to Boston was supposed to be a fresh start. A triple salary, a relocation package. It all sounded fantastic, and Rachel was ecstatic. She called it an adventure. For me, returning home felt complicated. I hoped enough time had passed to ease the tension with my family, to allow for some progress. My mom's text upon our arrival in Boston, a simple inquiry about our safe arrival, felt like a glimmer of hope. A sign that maybe, just maybe, she cared. That hope evaporated quickly when she casually mentioned Mason had also returned. His business ventures in California apparently hadn't panned out. That's putting it mildly. He'd conned some unsuspecting investors, a girl's parents, out of a significant sum. His tech startup? A poorly designed website that never even launched. The ensuing legal threats were entirely predictable. Typical Mason. Rachel and I settled into our new life in Cambridge, found jobs, and slowly, things began to feel normal. Then he reappeared. It began subtly. Random texts. Hey, big bro, heard you're back in town. Then came emails, promises of change, claims of personal growth. He'd even started therapy, he wrote, to address his past mistakes. He wanted to be a real brother, he claimed. I ignored him for 2 weeks, hoping he'd simply disappear. But he didn't. He found out where I worked. One day, he showed up in the lobby, telling the receptionist he had a lunch date with me. Security intervened, thankfully. But he then spent 3 agonizing hours loitering outside our building. My team watched, horrified, from the office windows. Rachel, bless her heart, thought I was being overly harsh. He's trying to make amends, she argued. Everyone deserves a second chance. She didn't know the whole story, the restraining orders, the financial wreckage he'd left behind. I hadn't told her. The shame was too much to bear. Who wants to admit their brother is a con artist? But Mason was shrewd. He'd always been a master manipulator. He started showering Rachel with long, tearful messages, expressing remorse, praising my success, professing his desire to be a part of our lives. Rachel, convinced of his sincerity, kept urging me to give him another chance. He seems genuine, she'd insist. People can change. I knew better, but her persistence was relentless. Then, without even asking, she invited him for dinner. I arrived home, exhausted after a long day, to find him sitting in our living room, as if he owned the place. The sheer audacity stole my breath. For a terrifying moment, I genuinely questioned my sanity. Had I invited him and forgotten? No, it was Rachel's misguided attempt at peacemaking. In the kitchen, I pulled her aside, my voice low but firm. You invited him here without even asking me? She sighed, arms crossed. I just thought if you actually talked, maybe you'd see he's trying. I diffused the situation then, avoiding a confrontation in front of him. But a tiny, nagging voice whispered, "What if he really has changed?" Back in the living room, Mason launched into an Academy Award-worthy performance. Expensive gifts, undoubtedly purchased with someone else's money. Carefully chosen questions about my work. Feigned interest in our life in Korea. He even managed to conjure tears, apologizing for our childhood, playing the role of the repentant brother seeking redemption. After that dinner, his visits became more frequent, always timed for my absence, always leaving Rachel to bear the brunt of his presence. Adjusting to Boston was hard. I remember feeling so overwhelmed, so focused on the sheer logistics of my new job, setting up the office, hiring staff, that I barely noticed anything else. My sister, Rachel, was settling in too, though her updates felt less frequent. She was finding her feet, navigating a new school, and I trusted her to manage. I worried, of course. Any big move is scary, so I asked our neighbors to keep an eye on her place, installed security cameras, and made sure she had all the emergency contacts. The business trip back to Seoul was grueling. 14-hour days bled into one another, leaving me exhausted and with little time to connect. Rachel's messages became shorter, more infrequent, the time difference, she explained, and the pressure of starting the new school year. Mason, her husband, sent updates too. Photos of them at restaurants, museums, the park, always with my parents. The constant barrage of pictures and enthusiastic messages from him about how grateful he was for another chance. His newfound appreciation for family. It felt off. My parents were always there, their smiles wide, creating this veneer of a perfectly normal family outing. Yet, a knot of unease remained in my stomach. Even at our family dinner after I returned from Seoul. One of those rare occasions where things felt truly normal, where Mason wasn't the center of attention. Something felt wrong. Then Rachel announced her pregnancy. My heart soared. The idea of starting a family, it was our dream. My parents were overjoyed, already brainstorming names, and my father clapped me on the back. But Mason's reaction felt off. His smile was strange, almost unsettling. "This family is getting bigger in all the best ways," he said, and the words sent a chill down my spine. I couldn't articulate it then, but that dinner marked a turning point. His behavior shifted dramatically after the pregnancy announcement. Initially, I attributed it to excitement, but it became something more. He was everywhere, constantly showing up unannounced, acting entitled, claiming he was just checking on his favorite sister-in-law. His comments became increasingly unsettling, overly familiar, possessive even. "Our baby is going to be so strong," he'd say, this strange possessiveness in his tone. I voiced my concerns to Rachel, but she dismissed them as paranoia, saying he was merely happy for us. "Happy for us or happy for you?" I countered. Her dismissive response, the eye roll, the accusation of me always seeing the worst in people. It was a turning point. That should have been my wake-up call, but I let it slide. I told myself I was overreacting. Then, one night, I came home late to find the front door unlocked. I distinctly remembered locking it that morning. A simple oversight, I reasoned. Maybe Rachel had forgotten after taking out the trash. But even then, a deep-seated fear began to take root. The seemingly innocuous events, viewed separately, felt insignificant. Together, they formed a pattern that was increasingly alarming. Something felt wrong, a persistent nagging feeling that wouldn't let go. I checked the security camera feed, hoping to quell my unease. Instead, I was met with an error message, "Error with storage settings." My heart sank. The system had stopped recording. A whole week's worth of footage vanished. I knew I'd set everything up correctly, meticulously ensuring automatic cloud backups. A secret I'd kept even from Rachel. Then other small things started to stand out. Rachel kept her phone face down, abruptly ending calls whenever I entered a room. Mason seemed unervingly familiar with the contents of our refrigerator, without ever having to ask. One sleepless night, the weight of these strange occurrences pressed down on me. Rachel slept peacefully beside me, her pregnancy-induced exhaustion evident. That's when I remembered the cloud backup. I tiptoed to my home office and logged into the cloud storage account. Hundreds of saved clips awaited. I began with the week I was in Seoul. The first clip showed Mason arriving shortly after I'd left for the airport. Rachel had said he was helping her unpack. Nothing overtly suspicious there. The second clip showed them on the couch watching a movie, sitting close. Still potentially innocent. The third clip, however, showed Mason kissing Rachel in our kitchen. A tremor ran through me. The video revealed everything. Mason's daily visits during my absence, their growing intimacy, Rachel letting him in late at night. The air left my lungs. It was like watching my worst nightmare unfold. Every fear I'd tried to suppress, every doubt I'd dismissed, was brutally confirmed. Mason hadn't just crossed boundaries. He'd obliterated them, invading my home, my marriage, my life. And Rachel, she'd allowed it, welcomed him as if it were perfectly normal. The betrayal itself was devastating, but what stung even more was their casualness, their air of familiarity. They cooked together, watched TV on our couch, shared our kitchen as if it were their own. Mason brought groceries, acting as if he lived here. One clip, in particular, seared itself into my memory. They were in the kitchen. Mason stood uncomfortably close to Rachel. She laughed at something he said, and he gently touched her face. A gesture that spoke volumes. She didn't pull away. She smiled at him, the same smile she used to give me. I spent the entire night watching those clips, witnessing their growing closeness, seeing Mason essentially move in while I was away, observing Rachel's complete transformation around him. The cameras didn't record inside the bedrooms, but the hallway camera captured enough. Mason entering our bedroom, and Rachel emerging hours later. I saved the footage to a secure drive, created multiple copies, and ensured everything was backed up. A part of me, the furious, protective part, needed proof. Another part, the heartbroken husband within, wanted to vomit. I kept telling myself I was misinterpreting things, searching for an explanation, a rationalization. But deep down, I knew the truth. My brother and my wife, in my house, in my bed, while I worked tirelessly in Seoul, striving to build a better life for us. The next morning, I called in sick to work. Sleep was impossible. I sat in my home office, staring blankly at the wall, until Rachel woke up. She entered the room, cheerful as ever, chattering about prenatal vitamins and doctor's appointments, as if nothing were amiss, as if the previous week hadn't involved her inviting my brother into our home. I didn't yell. I simply opened my laptop and played one of the videos, the one from the kitchen, where Mason's hands were all over her. Rachel's face drained of color. The tears started, a torrent of, "I can explain, it wasn't like that," followed by the familiar script of deceit. "It just happened," she sobbed. "Mason, he really gets me," as if that somehow excused everything. A bitter laugh escaped me. The sound felt hollow and empty in the suffocating silence. "Mason gets you? Mason, the man who can't hold down a job, the con artist? He gets you." Her lip trembled, a silent admission. I shook my head, the anger a physical knot in my throat. I had given her everything. I'd built our life, brick by painstaking brick, working tirelessly to secure our future, our child's future. She never lacked for anything, not rent, not food, nothing. I supported her ambitions, traveled halfway across the world for her, trusted her implicitly. And this was her repayment? The raw betrayal burned. I texted Mason, a simple, stark message. "We need to talk. Now." He arrived with his usual smirk, probably assuming I was oblivious, a fool easily manipulated. The smugness vanished the instant he saw the laptop screen, the irrefutable evidence playing out frame by agonizing frame. His eyes darted between the screen and me, his body stiffening. Then the practiced charm, the spin. "You gotta understand." "Understand what?" I interrupted, my voice level sharp. "How long has this been going on?" Rachel's sobs intensified, but I ignored her. My focus remained fixed on Mason, his desperate attempts to salvage the situation. "It just happened, man. We didn't plan it." Rachel finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper, shaking with fear and regret. "Please, you have to understand. We didn't mean to hurt you." A harsh laugh ripped through me. You let my brother into our home, into our bed. You allowed him to impersonate me while I was away. But we didn't mean it? Mason's face contorted, his words laced with a disturbing arrogance. Look, you're always working, always focused on your career. Rachel was lonely. She needed someone who could be there for her. Then, the ultimate insult, the final gut punch. Maybe if you'd been a better husband. My body tensed, a wave of furious energy threatening to erupt. Is that your nightly bedtime story? That it's somehow my fault? That you had no choice but to act like a parasitic leech? Rachel's crying intensified. Please, we need to think about the baby. I whirled so fast she flinched. Whose baby is this? Her face crumpled. The question apparently hadn't even occurred to her. It's yours, she choked out. I swear. You swear. My voice was glacial. The icy look I gave her could have frozen hell itself. Like you swore you were only with me? Like you swore Mason was just family? She couldn't answer, couldn't meet my gaze. Mason, his desperation palpable, threw out a final, pathetic lifeline. Come on, man. We're family. We can fix this. That was the end. The final, shattering blow. It was the final straw. I moved closer until I was inches from his face. Let me be absolutely clear, Mason, I said, my voice low and steady. You are not my family. You are not my brother. You are nothing to me. He started to speak, but I wouldn't let him. You crossed a line and there's no going back. And if this child isn't mine, I leaned in, the words sharp. You need to leave. Get out of my city, disappear. If I ever see you again, even if you just breathe the same air, I will make your life a living hell. He froze, genuine fear etched on his face for the first time I'd ever witnessed. Rachel whimpered, pleading for some kind of resolution, but I cut her off. Both of you, get out of my house. Unexpectedly, she reached for my hands, her grip desperate, clinging to me as if I were her only hope. Please, she whispered. We can fix this. We were both lost. I ripped my hands away, almost knocking her off balance. I wasn't lost, Rachel. You were lost, and you let my brother drag you into this mess. It was a mistake, she choked out. A terrible mistake. Yeah, no kidding, I replied, my voice tight with barely controlled fury. She took a deep breath, and then, predictably, she shifted the blame. Are you really going to punish our child for this? Her voice cracked, perfectly timed, like a well-rehearsed performance. Are you going to be one of those fathers who lets bitterness destroy his family? Don't even try that manipulative tactic, I snapped. This child needs at least one parent who isn't a liar and a cheat. They continued to plead, but I was spent. All I could manage was to keep repeating, get out now. The moment they were gone, I immediately called my parents, desperately hoping they'd finally see Mason for the man he truly was. I should have known better. My mother's first words were, oh, honey, you must have done something to push Rachel away. Felt like a punch to the gut. And it got worse. Mason needs a good woman in his life, and Rachel clearly makes him happy, she added, as if that justified everything. I stared at my phone, momentarily stunned. Are you even listening to yourself? I asked, incredulous. Sweetheart, she continued, you've always been so focused on your career. Maybe this is a sign that Rachel needed more from you. I nearly dropped the phone. I thought maybe, just maybe, there was a sliver of reason left in this family. There wasn't. They were completely on his side. My father was even worse, launching into a tirade about Mason finally finding his path, and how I should be the bigger person and help them financially until Mason got established. As if I should bankroll the people who had betrayed me. They even started telling other family members I was emotionally abusive and controlling because I had security cameras in my own home, claiming I drove Rachel away with my cold personality, and that Mason was merely a supportive brother caught in a complicated situation. That's when I knew I was done. Done with Mason, done with my parents, done with everything. That afternoon, I contacted a lawyer, a specialist in infidelity cases. I had everything documented. Every visit, Every lie, every betrayal. I filed for divorce. But my parents weren't finished trying to dismantle my life. A week later, they sued me, demanding financial support from Mason and Rachel, claiming a familial obligation to support my brother and his pregnant wife during this difficult transition. They wanted me to pay Mason's rent, Rachel's expenses, and even fund his latest business venture. The sheer audacity was shocking. What they didn't know was that I'd been meticulously planning my counterattack. While they were busy portraying me as the villain, I was building an impenetrable case, not only against Rachel for the divorce, but also against Mason for years of fraud and manipulation. My lawyer helped me contact everyone Mason had scammed over the past 5 years, tracking down victims through social media, online forums, and court records. We filed a class action lawsuit against him, complete with irrefutable evidence. The lawsuit hit him like a ton of bricks, just as he was trying to convince Rachel they had a future. And we didn't stop there. We dug into their affair. It turned out Rachel hadn't just betrayed me. She'd been helping Mason access our joint accounts. My lawyer uncovered numerous suspicious transfers, purchases, and cash withdrawals that coincided precisely with Mason's visits. The moment the suspicious activity was flagged, I acted swiftly. Every account was frozen, and a fraud report filed with the bank. Simultaneously, the pressure from my parents mounted. Their lawsuit demanded $5,000 a month for Mason's basic needs, another $3,000 for Rachel's expenses, and an astounding $50,000 for Mason's new startup, all before a single paternity test. The court date arrived like a welcome confrontation. I watched, a quiet observer, as my parents sat radiating self-satisfied righteousness. Then my lawyer launched our counteroffensive. Evidence of Mason's elaborate fraud schemes unfolded, meticulously documented. We exposed how my parents had knowingly facilitated and concealed his crimes for years, bank statements revealing their complicity in hiding his ill-gotten gains from previous victims. The judge immediately ordered a full investigation into their potential involvement. The shift in their demeanor was stark. Smug confidence evaporated, replaced by sheer terror as they grasped the gravity of their situation. Rachel wasn't spared. Her role in Mason's schemes was irrefutable. The school board's ethics investigation, triggered by our evidence, led to her swift dismissal. Her teaching career was over. Mason's carefully constructed world collapsed around him. Former victims emerged, their stories corroborating our findings. His current scams were exposed, his reputation shattered, his credit ruined, his accounts frozen. A desperate flight to Florida proved futile. Every attempt by my parents or Rachel's lawyer to portray me as controlling or abusive, citing the home security cameras I'd installed for my own protection while traveling, backfired spectacularly. Their desperate attempts to twist the narrative only underscored their dishonesty. But my focus remained on the one thing that truly mattered: the paternity test. By the time the hearing arrived, Mason was facing multiple investigations. Rachel's career was in ruins, and my parents were entangled in crippling legal fees. Their meticulously crafted facade had crumbled. I felt a strange sense of detachment. Their downfall didn't bring me satisfaction. It was simply a necessary consequence. My focus shifted to the future, my future, and the possibility of my child's. If the baby were mine, I was prepared to fight for full custody, and I had the evidence to prove it. The paternity test results arrived unexpectedly. Sarah, my lawyer's call left me breathless. I'm the father. It felt surreal, a cruel twist of fate that made this already complex situation even more challenging. Then, the day after receiving the results, Rachel appeared at my doorstep, demanding I drop all legal proceedings. The sheer audacity of her request, invoking the need for family unity, was astonishing. Mason appeared with her, pitching the absurd idea of co-parenting as some sort of modern family. Their desperation was palpable. They were broke and hoped to move into my house. Their arrogance proved to be their undoing. They recorded our conversation, believing they held leverage, neglecting one crucial detail. My security system records audio. Now, I possess irrefutable proof of their attempted extortion and admissions to further fraudulent schemes. As Sarah said, This is better than Christmas. The Department of Education is investigating me now, and I'm also facing several lawsuits from parents. Feels surreal, like something out of a bad dream. To add insult to injury, my own parents attempted a family intervention. At church, of all places. They announced to everyone present, including Rachel's family and several church elders, that I was mentally unstable and needed help. The humiliation was crushing. What they didn't realize was that Sarah had already alerted the church leadership about Mason's despicable elderly scam, targeting many within our own congregation. Their carefully orchestrated plan spectacularly blew up in their faces. The fallout has been swift and decisive. They're essentially ostracized within the community they once held so dear. It's a strange sort of justice, watching them grapple with the consequences of their own actions. The whole situation leaves me with a complicated mix of relief and a deep, lingering sadness. The betrayal cuts deeper than I ever imagined it could. There's a hollowness where my trust in them used to be, a void that feels impossible to fill. I find myself wondering what kind of future I can possibly build after this. The weight of everything is immense, but I am trying to focus on moving forward.